Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing a tutorial for book charms, and this comes at the request of Carmen, who's a new subby from Germany. Hi Carmen, and thanks for the request. These are little charms that I included in a recent entry for a giveaway, and I'm going to use the Buenos Dias collection today to show you how I bring these little charms together. Lots of people make these, and they really are based on larger book foundations. So here we go. I'm not going to provide measurements today, but as a reference I use centimetres. So this board is a centimetre grid, and I do really just use scraps of bookboard. So I make larger books and I have lots of little scraps of bookboard lying around, and so I use those to make these tiny little books. So you simply measure your bookboard to the size of the book that you want, and these ones are about 2.5 centimetres by 3.5 centimetres. And then you measure your piece of paper so that you've got enough wraparound room over the top. And I like to use glue. Some people will use double-sided adhesive for this step, but in my view glue is more of a permanent solution. I live in quite a hot climate, so sometimes the double-sided adhesive can come away from your project over time if you live in a hot climate. And really the process here is to make sure that you line up the elements, so the 3 elements. So you have a front book element, a spine and a back of the book element, and you want enough space in between the spine and where the book connects so that it will eventually fold over. I then like to score the outside of where the folds will be, and if you have enough space, go down the middle as well. And then it's really just a case of bringing the overlap into the center, and then I run my bone folder around the edge just so that it's nice and crisp. So you can see there that you're starting to see where the outside of the book will be. And then I take my scissors. I don't necessarily measure, and I'm not going to go straight across, but the important thing here is that you leave enough in the center here, on the edge here, so that when you fold it up it will cover the very point here. So I use a little swoop, and then you can see when you're coming up here you've got enough to actually cover the very edge of the book cardboard. I once again use glue at this step. I would probably take a little bit more time normally to make sure the glue's not excessive. You don't want too much glue. And then I bring in the top and the bottom and bring in each of the ends there. Hold until you have enough traction that the glue is going to stick, and then I bring in my bone folder and I just butt up gently against each of those corners to make sure that there's good coverage with the edge of the book. And at this stage that will hold. Give yourself a little bit of a nudge in those creases with your bone folder, and then it's just a case of making sure they're going to come up. And that's the foundation for your book. And then I'm going to use ribbon to bind the book. So I'm coming in this time with a gel medium. This is a gel glue, but you could use any sort of gel medium or gel glue that you have. And I'm right at the end of that particular glue bottle, so I might just use my paper glue just for this exercise, but I would normally use a gel glue because you're sticking fabric to paper, so it'll have more hold. But in general terms, all that you're doing here is lining up your ribbon so that it goes down, well, I like it to be down the center of the book, so that later it will be able to close at the side. So if we just leave that to the side for the moment to dry, and we bring in another example. So this is an example, same process used to build the cover. And then I have a piece of paper that I've cut so that it will sit just inside the cover. And then I'm going in with paper, using the book inside and the paper for adhesive, just to make sure there's good adherence there. And that's all you need to form the cover. Once it's dry, or at least a little bit dry, just go down those seams and you'll find that that's all that you need for that to come together. You do need to wait for that to dry. And then the next step is to cut your papers for the inside of your book. So I've cut these papers so that they are the full size of the height of the book and the full size of the breadth of one of the covers, so that it will sit nicely. So I cut them to that size, and then I bring them together and I slice down the middle, just because there's a distance between the outer paper and the inner paper, and unless you like a ragged edge, you'll like to bring that together that way. And I have pre-pierced these holes with an awl just to save time today, but in normal circumstances I would find the center and I would pierce the center and come up equal distances to find the place that you want to secure your book. So in this circumstance, if I go straight to the center here, oops, and I find my center, so you're finding your center and you're pressing the awl all the way through to the exterior of the book, and make sure you go down enough so that it actually comes through and leaves quite a substantial hole. And I'm just going to use where I've already made the holes in the paper as a guide for where the additional holes will be. So if I just make those indentations, and then I can go through once again with that awl just to make the holes. So now we have holes in the paper and holes in the book that exactly match. With this particular example, I'm going to use a 3-hole binding technique from the outside to the inside. And you'll notice here I've already prepared this by putting a bead on the outside here. So I'm going to go from the outside of the center hole through to the center, and then I'm going to go through the center of the book pages, and then to the top of the book pages and out through the spine. And then I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, and then through the bottom of the book pages. And at this stage you're going to start thinking, okay, is it starting to be quite firmly secured, and then go back to the middle and out to the other side. The important thing here is that the tails are on either side of that little piece of twine. So at this stage, you can, if you're holding it with a clip like I am, just remove that. And you're really looking to make sure this is as secure as you want it to be at this time. And I don't want that tail to be that long, so I'm just going to measure it out. And once you're confident that your inner book is firm, so no slack in the cord, and the same with your outer book, then you do just tie that off. I'm using a waxed thread so it holds quite nicely. And I would do a double bow. Obviously not a bow, a double knot. Oops. So 2 knots, and then you can tie your other bead onto the end as well. So that's all you need to do to make an outside book. And then if you come back to the original book, which is now dry, you can repeat that process, but this time I'll show you how to have the spine, or the binding, sorry, turn up on the inside of the book. So the same process there with your piece of paper. There we go. Just giving that a moment. I once again have pre-pierced the papers, just to save us some time, but really the same process here. I would find the center and just remember when you're going through the center that you are normally, if you're putting the ribbon on the closure, so down flat for the closure, you are going through that ribbon on that center, so you just need to be careful. And then I know I've measured up 1 centimetre and 1 centimetre. So I'm just going to do that. Same process. The only point of difference with this, I'm just waiting for that glue to dry there, but the only point of difference here is that I did intend to place an eyelet in the spine of this particular book. So we have a tiny little eyelet here. We're going to use our chomper, and I like to place it really close to the top so that we're not interrupting the position of where the twine will go through, but we're also close to the top so that when we're threading a charm through later on, it fits quite nicely. So if we now go back, just check that we're all good to go. So the ribbon lines up in the middle, and you've got the primary parts of your book all prepared. And we're going to once again thread, but this time from the inside of the book out. So we're going to go through the center, and we're going to go through the center of the spine, back up through the top hole, and then through the corresponding hole on the paper. Just pull your thread through, and once again going all the way down to the bottom, so through the paper and the spine, back through the middle hole and through the paper. Sometimes you have to find your paper at this stage, so you're finding the holes, and once again you're trying to come up on the opposite side so that when you do your tie off in the center, you're looking to have your thread on both sides of the middle. I like to give it a tug in either direction just to make sure it's really well secured, and then it's just once again a case of knotting and trimming. And those little tails will just sit nicely on the inside of the book. So from there you will decorate your cover. I would normally tie this up at this stage just so that you're getting into a feel of how the cover's going to look. Now for a charm, I would do a double knot here. They're not really intended to be opened necessarily, so I like to do a double knot. You can always undo it. The recipient can undo it if they want to, but we're not filling anything in on the inside of the book. And so you'll make a nice bow. I'd wait right to the end to trim that off, just to give it a good tug, and then make sure you're good to go. Trim your ends. There we go. And then it's just a case of decorating however you choose to decorate. I have some sequins here. I'm traditionally a card maker, so I tend to find that I use card formations a lot, but it really is just about getting things to your liking. Once again, I'd probably normally use a gel glue on this. And then I have two stickers from the collection here ready to go. I've actually backed these onto cardboard just so that they are a little firmer in their constitution. Just muck around with that until you're happy with the placement. And I'm going to take a little sentiment and place that potentially just a little higher than the sequins there. So decorating these books is about finding the little things in your stash and putting them together. So I will come back in and I've threaded a little bead and there's a little charm there, and that will sit off the side of that to make the book charm. And I'll also put a little lobster clasp on there as well, so that it all comes together as a charm. You can obviously bring these to life in different ways. I'm about to use this book here that I made first, and this little book here that is without a large spine to build a tiny little bookshelf on a piece of work that I'm sending off. So you can build them with spines or without spines. You can make the spines larger or smaller, obviously, and you can even get to a point where you get tiny, tiny little books using the same application. So this has a front and a back and a tiny little spine. This from memory is 1 centimetre wide and 1.5 centimetres tall. And I still threaded the centre, so I still bound a little set of book pages just for the effect, and some tiny little embellishments on the side there, so that you have different types of books using the same technique and using all of your little things in your stash. I hope this tutorial is helpful to you and that you find time to do something creative in each of your days. Thank you.